This car is trying to take on a lot. Not only does it have to be the flagship electric car from Mercedes-Benz, but it's also faced with the task of replacing the legendary S-Class. And in this AMG trim we're looking at today, it also has to represent the future of the brand's driving experience. So can the EQS really take it all on? We're going to take a closer look, but before we do, remember to check out the full written review over at carsguide.com.au and our EV Guide site section, where you can read all sorts of advice stories and learn everything you need to know about electric cars. First up, we're going to take a look at this car's design because it really can't be ignored. The look of the EQS is controversial. Unlike the S-Class which came before it, it doesn't have a storied and developed design language. Instead, it adopts this amorphous shape, which it needs to keep that drag coefficient down in the electric era. I've got to say though, there's going to be fans even of Mercedes-Benz design who aren't sold by it. This marriage of form and function results in a smooth, rounded shape foregoing the design elements of Mercedes combustion vehicles, with wheels which reach to the edges of the frame and a blank gloss grille with that AMG signature Panamericana chrome pattern missing its usual three-dimensional flair. You'd better get used to this shape too, as the smaller EQE, which arrives in Australia at a later date, shares a near-identical curvy silhouette. The rear three-quarter view might be the best angle of the EQS, with an attractive lift-back tailgate, colour-matching spoiler flicking up off the boot lid, and tasteful badge work illustrating this car's place in the lineup. At least some of that traditional Mercedes-Benz style is reclaimed through the LED light cluster shapes both front and rear. It's certainly a step into the future, but a divisive one nonetheless, with an equal amount of onlookers during my week with the car either appreciating or disliking the EQS's overall appearance. On the inside, things are pretty full on with the latest array of everything Mercedes has to offer. Now, there's no question that this design is properly opulent, befitting an S-Class. There's plenty of soft materials in here, the seats are lovely, but it's the screen that really takes it to the next level. Mercedes call it the MBUX Hyperscreen, and even though it is made up of three separate panels, they measure it as a single unit the whole way across the dash, measuring at over 1.4 meters. It's pretty impressive, but I'm not sure that every Mercedes traditionalist is going to love it. At $328,000 before you even start ticking option boxes, the EQS is at the top of the price scale even amongst EVs. It might surprise you to learn though that even though it is the flagship electric vehicle for Mercedes-Benz currently, it's more affordable than the top spec version of the combustion S-Class. It's also more affordable than high-spec versions of its closest German rival, the Porsche Taycan, and by a decent margin too. Right now, it sits above BMW's flagship EV offering, the iX M60, but not for much longer, as BMW looks to offer an electric version of its 7 Series limo, as well as a newcomer in the form of the Polestar 5, so keep an eye out for those. The AMG tinged 53 is the only EQS grade available in Australia so far, and it comes with all the bells and whistles, including 21-inch alloy wheels, more aggro styling, 4-wheel steer, all-wheel drive, ridiculous amounts of power and torque, which we'll talk about later, and that's not to mention the somewhat absurd cabin. The MBUX suite in the EQS consists of 3 separate screens, while still featuring heated and ventilated seats, quad-zone climate control, a wireless phone charger, USB-C outlets, leather interior trim, the signature AMG steering wheel, full electrical adjust for the front seats, as well as massage functions. But there's more than that. There's a screen just for the front passenger where you can see all kinds of information and change various non-driver critical functions. It's neat and a little business class, but perhaps completely unnecessary. So then, the EQS has no shortage of stuff, but is it practical? Let's take a look. Now, because the EQS has bespoke electric underpinnings compared to other Mercedes-Benz models, it means you can do things like have a smooth cutaway through here. And Mercedes have even thought, what if you have objects in there that are going to get thrown around when you're doing AMG stuff? They've put an elastic band down here so you can actually put your objects there and they don't move. It's really cool. Okay, so sitting in here and there's heaps of space in the EQS. I do feel as though adjustability is really good, but there's a bit of a catch which I didn't expect. I feel like the digital instrument cluster is either blocked by the steering wheel in my comfortable position with the seat set to its lowest position. It's just the top of the wheel here. I can't fully see it. And if I set it up so that I can see it, like so, then my arms have to sit off of here, which makes it uncomfortable for longer trips. That was just a little bit of a design flaw that I found that was a little bit strange. Also, this large screen, it's so big that I actually have trouble reaching all the way across to touch some of the furthest elements, especially when it comes to things like Apple CarPlay, where they haven't thought that it would be that far away to operate things like navigation functions. There's also some strange things about the menu too. So if I go into one menu here, I can see that there's all these settings, and one of them is the settings for the car, and that's fine. I can change a whole bunch of things in there. But I was trying to look for the ride control. This car can actually lift up off the ground, and you might actually want to use that quite often given how long it is and how limited its over angle is. So I actually have to find a separate menu, which is accessed by a shortcut button here to raise the vehicle height. It took me a while to find it. I just thought that was a little bit strange that there's two completely separate vehicle function menus. Just little things like that. Elsewhere, your regular storage appointments are all there as well. There's a bottle holder with a sort of a limited height, but a large bin as well in that door. There's fold-out cup holders here, which you can stow away to have larger objects in there as well, and a huge center open console box here, which has plenty of room, and a further 2 USB-C ports, as well as the 2 in here. There's also a wireless charger, and this entire section here has a nice soft close, so you can have just that carbon fiber aesthetic if you want it. Now, I know this one is an AMG, but an S-Class is a car that most buyers will be driven in, not necessarily drive themselves. And so the back seat should be completely opulent, and it mostly is back here. I've got leagues of room in pretty much every direction. I've got my own sunroof back here as well, and there's these nice soft padded headrest things which come with the car as well, very business class. One thing that isn't so much business class is there's no screen on the back of the front seats. That's something that the Genesis G80 comes with. I'm just not sure why this car doesn't come with it. I suppose maybe the intent is that it's more AMG and it might come on lower variants. I don't know yet, but we'll have to find out. Now, one thing our test car doesn't have that you can get as an option is rear heated seats, but there is quad zone climate control with its own control panel back here, and you get adjustable air vents, not just in the center, but in the B-pillar as well, which is a really nice touch. There's some hard cladding on the back of the front seats for storage, and a bottle holder in the door, as well as pop-out ones in this center armrest. It's opulent, but in some ways I wish it had a bit more wow factor, because it has so much wow factor in the front. Let's take a look at the boot. The boot comes in at 560 litres, which importantly is significantly larger than the smaller EQE. As you can see, it fit our entire CarsGuide luggage set, no problems with space to spare, and the underfloor area also has a small storage area for your charging cables. In the electric era, it seems brands are much more free to have absurd power levels, and the EQE 53 absolutely has AMG levels of power, with a whopping 484 kilowatts on tap and up to 1020 newton meters of torque with the AMG Dynamic Plus package equipped. Not only that, but the EQS has four-wheel steer, all-wheel drive with torque vectoring, and completely customizable drive modes. Now, there's a fair bit going on when it comes to the EQS's drive experience, because it is so electrified and it is so different. But let's talk about that driving noise first. I'll turn it up here. So hopefully you can hear that. Now, AMG has created this soundscape because they know that part of their brand has always been the drama of their cars, whether that's a big AMG engine or now in the electric era. And trying to replicate that is a difficult task. This soundscape that they've created is linked in with your accelerator, with your drive mode, with your wheel speed, and it even has a sound for regen, idle, and when you turn the car on and off. There are 4 modes, so you can adjust how loud it is to your taste, and there's 2 completely separate soundscapes. One sounds sort of like a distant V8, and the other one, which we're using now, sounds a little bit more science fiction-y. It's kind of cool, and I think at very least in the sport mode, where it's kind of at a medium volume, it's better to have it than not to have it. It also projects a sound outside the car as well, and again, that's tied in with your drive mode, and that's useful to have because you're not just creeping up on people in parking lots where they might not be able to hear you, as is the case in some electric cars. It's not just the noise as well, there's a fair bit of customization across all of the features in this car. Those drive modes are completely adjustable with that really convenient screen, and they change everything from the steering tune to the suspension tune to the accelerator response, which is really nice. There's even a great amount of adjustability for the regen braking. You use your flappy panels on the steering wheel here to flick through the modes. The standard is a normal recuperation mode, which regens a little bit and then has a blended braking proportion as well. Or there's a max regen mode, which I prefer, which almost brings the car to a full halt when you let off the accelerator. AMG has tuned those 3 recuperation modes carefully because it doesn't want to offer too much choice to drivers. It wants to keep driving an electric car simple but interactive, and I think they've done a great job of that. As an S-Class, does it feel luxurious? I think absolutely the EQS does, and a lot of it is down to the adaptive suspension tune in this car. It's really smooth, it blocks out most of the bumps on the road while still letting you feel just enough through the steering. It's a really good tune, and it's rare to come across one that we have so few complaints about. It has its limits. You can still feel big bumps if you hit them hard enough, and that's largely down to those huge wheels. But that having been said, it is meant to be a performance car too. So it's great as an S-Class in terms of comfort and quietness, but how is it as an AMG? Well, straight up, the handling is really good. There's a really organic steering tune despite how electrified this car is, but there is something a bit surreal about its 4-wheel steering. It's such a massive car and yet it feels really agile. I'm pleased to see that it's not a weird feeling like some 4-wheel steer systems can give you in a performance car. It just makes this car more accurate and agile when you steer it. And when you're in the corners as well, it does offer you a level of confidence that I didn't expect. I thought it would either feel a little bit weird or a little bit off-putting, but it really doesn't. It's just a good system. Performance-wise, well, with more than 1,000 Newton meters on tap, there's no question that this car is fast, and it's instantaneously fast too, with no transmission to deal with or anything like that to think about. It's just blisteringly quick, quicker than pretty much any combustion car you'll come across, at least anyway. So do I feel like the EQS 53 is a genuine AMG? I think it is, but not in the way that we've known them before. There's a little bit of that brutality and brashness missing from what we've become accustomed to from its combustion range. There's something clinical about the way this car attacks the corners and accelerates with its purely silent drive. But I think the way it blends that outstanding performance with the comfort of an S-Class is just a sample of what we have to look forward to in the electric era. With a 107.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack, one of the biggest on any EV on the market today, the EQS is heavy. And despite its weird shape, which it has adopted for that low drag profile, it's not one of the more efficient EVs I've ever driven. Over my week with it, I've produced a number of 26.6 kilowatt hours to 100 kilometers, which is a little off the 23 kilowatt hour claim. And to put that in perspective, it's a bit like the electric equivalent of having a V8 under the hood. But thinking a little bit more about it, with that huge battery pack under the floor giving it its range, the EQS weighs in at nearly 3 tons. At a full charge, you should expect an excellent range of around 585 kilometers, again, one of the longest of any EV currently on the market. The EQS can charge at a rate of 200 kilowatts on a DC fast charger, which is one of the faster charge rates for cars on 400-volt architectures. Meanwhile, on the AC charging standard, the EQS charges at a healthy speed of 11 kilowatts. That should allow you a full charge in about 9 hours, or optionally a whopping 22 kilowatts, which should cut that charge time in half. Good luck finding an AC charger capable of that speed in Australia right now, but at least Mercedes offers it as an option to future-proof your car. Is there a safety feature that this car doesn't have? There's no safety-related option, so the EQS 53 gets the full array as standard. From freeway speed auto emergency braking to what might be one of the market's best autonomous cruise systems. Read more about the full suite over at carsguide.com.au, but suffice to say, owners won't be disappointed. The EQS is yet to be rated by ANCAP as of the publishing of this video, but standard variants scored a maximum 5-star Euro ANCAP rating to the 2021 standard overseas. Mercedes offers the EQS with a 5-year and unlimited kilometre warranty, but the high voltage battery is covered for a whopping 10 years or 250,000 kilometres. Service intervals are surprisingly standard at 12 months and 15,000 kilometres, and the EQS is offered with 3 tiers of prepaid service program for 3, 4 or 5 years at varying prices. Read more about those over at carsguide.com.au. It works out to be about $650 a year in its cheapest form, which is far from the cheapest we've seen for an EV, but chump change for owners considering the upfront cost of the EQS. There's no question it's fast, there's no question it's luxurious. But if I'm being real with you, I'm not sure that the EQS is going to be for everybody. That styling is challenging and the interior tech offering might be a little bit too much, particularly for a traditional Mercedes buyer. But then again, shouldn't an electric flagship challenge the status quo? If anything, I think that's something that the EQS 53 does really well.